The NFL draft has come and gone, and now it's time for everyone to share their thoughts and opinions on it, including me. This is not going to be a draft grades video. I hate draft grades because you can never truly judge something as soon as it happens. That's just the dumbest thing. But right now, let's just take a look back at the first round, shall we? With the first pick, the Las Vegas Raiders went with Fernando Mendoza. This was about the least shocking thing that happened on day one of the draft, but it was still nice to see. We knew this was happening for a while, but it'll be interesting to see what the plan is in Las Vegas with Kirk Cousins and now Fernando Mendoza. With the second pick, the New York Jets went with pass rusher David Bailey. Bailey was coming off one of the best seasons for an edge rusher in college since Aiden Hutchinson. It's a shame that that led him to being drafted by the Jets. Still, Bailey is joining a revamped Jets defense that will be counting on him to get to the quarterback. With the third pick, the Arizona Cardinals went with Jeremiah Love. There were rumors about the Cardinals taking Love if they couldn't trade back, but a part of me just thought that that was them trying to bait teams in the top 10 to move up. But no, they actually went with Love. Arizona doesn't have much else going on for them on offense. This certainly raises their ceiling on offense, but I can see why people are a little skeptical about this pick. With the fourth pick, the Tennessee Titans went with Carnell Tate. If the Titans were serious about Cam Ward's development, they had to go offense with this pick. Carnell Tate joins a receiver room with Calvin Ridley and Wandale Robinson, so he won't be asked to be the number one receiver right away, which I've seen as a criticism of him. But the hope is in a few years he'll be able to be that number one receiver for the Titans and Cam Ward. With the fifth pick, the New York Giants went with Arvell Reese. Reese falling to 5 was not something I had on my draft bingo card. I also did not think the Giants would select him, but this should all spell the end of Kayvon Thibodeau's time in New York. Not sure how the Giants are going to utilize Reese, but if they can get the most of his jack of all trades skill set, this would be a nice addition to the Giants' defense. With the sixth pick, the Kansas City Chiefs selected Mansour Delane. Kansas City moved up 3 spots to draft Delane, trading pick 9, 74, and 148. And at first, I was a little confused why they felt they had to trade up to get Delane, but after reconsideration, honestly, it doesn't matter. You do what you have to do to get your guy, and Kansas City gets their heir apparent to Trent McDuffie. With the seventh pick, the Washington Commanders selected Sonny Styles. Washington stayed put, got their guy they probably wanted from the start. I think we can all agree this probably means Bobby Wagner won't be returning to Washington, but the Commanders desperately needed to get younger and faster on defense, and they did that with the selection of Styles. With the eighth pick, the New Orleans Saints went with Jordan Tyson. The Saints drafted 3 receivers, and it started here with the Tyson pick. Tyson was a huge wild card in this draft because the talent was undeniable, but the injuries were very worrying. But clearly, he showed out at his pro day in order for New Orleans to take the risk on him with a top 10 pick. Hopefully, Jordan Tyson can stay healthy because he immediately becomes the Saints wide receiver number 2 behind Chris Olave, who himself is very injury prone. With the ninth pick, the Cleveland Browns selected Spencer Fano. Cleveland was always looking to trade down, and they were able to do that and still have their pick of the offensive lineman. The Browns added 3 offensive linemen in this draft, but none more important than Spencer Fano, who will probably be thrust into the starting left tackle spot to protect whoever the Browns decide to go with at quarterback. With the 10th pick, the New York Giants went with Francis Mauigoa. Not the sexiest pick, but it was a giant need for the Giants. This pick is the definition of drafting for need versus drafting best available, because Caleb Downs was right there. I don't hate the Mauigoa pick, but man, if Caleb Downs is as good as advertised, Cowboys fans will never let Giants fans live this one down. With the 11th pick, the Dallas Cowboys moved up to select Caleb Downs. Like I said with Kansas City, though, I was a little confused why Dallas traded up 1 spot, but honestly, Dallas did what they had to do to secure their guy. I don't think Miami would have taken Downs, but who cares? The Cowboys addressed a massive need with a player who should have never fallen to them, and it's hard not to be excited about this one, especially if you're a Cowboys fan. With the 12th pick, the Miami Dolphins went with Caden Proctor. I'll never complain about a team taking an offensive lineman, especially if their O line was as bad as the Dolphins' O line was last season. Proctor won't solve all of the Dolphins' problems on offense, but the hope is that he can be a lone bright spot along their woeful offensive line. With the 13th pick, the Los Angeles Rams went with Ty Simpson. I was watching the draft with my dad, and as the Rams were on the clock, he turns to me and he says, we really haven't seen any surprises, like a Michael Penix pick. And not even 5 minutes later, the Rams take Ty Simpson with a top 15 pick. I was certain Simpson was going in the first round, but I don't know if anybody thought he would go this high. I really can't get on board with this one. Unless Matthew Stafford retires after this season, because the Rams were and are so close to a Super Bowl, and adding someone who can come in right away with this pick could have been what puts them over the edge. Even if in 2 or 3 years Simpson comes in and is really good, was it really worth neglecting those 2 or 3 years of Matthew Stafford to plan for the years after him? I don't know. Only time will tell with this one. With the 14th pick, the Baltimore Ravens selected Vega Ione. Baltimore played the draft well. They stayed put, got a guy at a position of need, and Ione was one of the best interior offensive line prospects in this draft, and he fell right into their lap. Like I said earlier, I'll never complain about an offensive line pick. With the 15th pick, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers went with Reuben Bain Jr. The thing about prospects falling in the draft is the fall has to end eventually. Reuben Bain had some baggage coming into this draft, but in the NFL world, talent trumps everything, and Bain has talent. Edge rusher was the Bucks' biggest need going into the draft, and they got potentially the best one depending on who you ask. Only time will tell though if his short arms will be a problem in the NFL. With the 16th pick, the New York Giants selected Kenyon Sadiq. The New York Jets offense actually looks interesting. Tight end definitely wasn't a need for the Jets, but if you like a prospect enough, all bets are off. Sadiq as a talent is definitely worth the 16th pick, and it'll be interesting to see how the Jets utilize Sadiq under new offensive coordinator Frank Reich. With the 17th pick, the Detroit Lions went with Blake Miller. This is as interesting of an offensive line pick as you can get. Blake Miller didn't play left tackle, he played right tackle in college. So this means more than likely Penny Sewell will be moving back over to left tackle after playing his entire career at right tackle. Again, I'll never complain about an offensive line pick, but this is certainly an interesting choice by Detroit. With the 18th pick, the Minnesota Vikings selected Caleb Banks. Throughout the whole draft process, I was dead set that the Vikings would take a safety with this pick, considering it was their biggest need. However, Caleb Banks is certainly an interesting prospect. The dude is massive and the talent is obviously there, but he's coming off a nagging foot injury that's limited him, but hopefully he can stay healthy and show off his skill set. With the 19th pick, the Carolina Panthers went with Monroe Freeling. Hey, would you look at that? Something I predicted would happen, happened. Carolina needed some serious offensive line help considering Ikem Ekwonu is going to miss considerable time this upcoming season. Not sure if Freeling will start at left tackle or compete for a guard spot, but nonetheless, the Panthers get some much needed offensive line depth. With the 20th pick, the Pittsburgh Steelers, I mean Philadelphia Eagles, went with Makai Lemon. Philadelphia absolutely embarrassed Pittsburgh in their own backyard. The Steelers were getting ready to add some serious firepower to their offense, and Philly made a deal with Dallas of all teams to spit in the face of Yinzers everywhere. I'm more surprised Dallas was willing to trade with Philadelphia considering they just handed them one of the best receivers in this draft class. I wouldn't say this all but confirms AJ Brown is gone, but he's probably gone. Lemon joins a pretty crowded wide receiver room in Philly, but his ability to dominate in the slot makes me not so worried about it. With the 21st pick, the Pittsburgh Steelers went with Max, Ihe, and Anchor. After getting absolutely mogged in their home city, Pittsburgh tucked their tail between their legs and drafted a project offensive lineman. Max Ihe and Anchor hasn't been playing football for very long, but he has all the tools and athleticism to dominate in the NFL. It's just a matter of whether he can put it all together in Pittsburgh. On one hand, I feel kind of bad for Steelers fans, but on the other hand, it's kind of funny. With the 22nd pick, the Los Angeles Chargers went with Akeem Mesidor. The Chargers needed an edge rusher, and they got one. Mesidor will be 25 when his rookie year starts, but who cares? He has the skill set to help the Chargers win now. With the 23rd pick, the Dallas Cowboys went with Malachi Lawrence. So after the Cowboys helped the Eagles for some reason, dummy the Steelers, Dallas finally addressed their pass rusher needs with Malachi Lawrence. Lawrence will be in the rotation that features Rashawn Gary and Donovan Ezaraku, so he won't be forced to produce right away. But there is a little extra pressure on him considering he's part of the Micah Parsons trade return. With the 24th pick, the Cleveland Browns went with KC Concepcion. Cleveland went offense with 8 of their 10 picks, and 2 of their first 3 picks were wide receivers. Concepcion should be able to come in right away and start for the Browns at slot receiver. It's just a matter of who will be throwing him the ball in Cleveland, which sucks considering their rosters as a whole is very strong excluding their quarterback position. With the 25th pick, the Chicago Bears went with Dylan Tieneman. A lot of emphasis was put on how big of a need the Bears had on the defensive line, but the Bears also had a pretty big hole at safety after losing both Kevin Byard and CJ Gardner Johnson in free agency. They were forced to bring in 2 new safeties in Kobe Bryant and now Dylan Thieneman. Chicago played the draft really well. They didn't reach based on position and just stayed put and took the best prospect that feels a huge need for them on defense. With the 26th pick, the Houston Texans went with Keelan Rutledge. Honestly, huge props to the Texans. They saw CJ Stroud get absolutely destroyed behind a terrible offensive line and get embarrassed on national television against the Patriots, so they went out and invested heavily into their O line. I assume the plan for Rutledge is for him to play center, considering they brought in Wyatt Teller and re signed Ed Ingram, but honestly, good on Houston for investing in their offensive line. With the 27th pick, the Miami Dolphins went with Chris Johnson. Miami desperately needed a cornerback, and they took one. Nice. Drafting 101. Thumbs up. With the 28th pick, the New England Patriots selected Caleb Lomu. New England goes tackle in back to back drafts in order to protect their new golden goose, Drake May. New England got absolutely ran through in the Super Bowl, so hopefully Caleb Lomu can come in and help out. I'm not really sure what the plan is for Lomu, whether they'll move him to right tackle or move Will Campbell inside to guard or what. But either way, New England needed offensive linemen and they got one. With the 29th pick, the Kansas City Chiefs went with Peter Woods. I really, really hate it when Kansas City does things I like because it makes it that much harder to hate on them, and even more annoying when it all works out for them. Kansas City has really neglected finding Chris Jones a true running mate on the interior defensive line, and they focused more on the edge. But now getting Peter Woods forms a potentially deadly duo in Kansas City. With the 30th pick, the New York Jets select Omar Cooper Jr. The Jets did things, potentially good things. I really didn't think Omar Cooper Jr. would fall to pick 30, but the Jets took that good fortune and did what they had to do and traded up to get him. Honestly, good on the Jets. There's still a high chance this all blows up in their face, but I can see the thought process. With the 31st pick, the Tennessee Titans selected Keldrick Folk. The Titans added some much needed edge rusher help thanks to the Bills trading down 3 times. The Titans' edge rusher group isn't exactly good, so Folk will be given ample opportunity considering the Titans don't really have anyone else to rely on. With the 32nd pick, Seattle selected Jadarian Price. The Seahawks needed a running back, so they drafted one. This is one of those times I feel like people overrate draft rankings because at the end of the day, teams are just going to take whoever they want, and teams are always higher or lower on certain players, and this feels like one of those times where the Seahawks were just higher on a guy than most. Only time will tell about this NFL draft. Just give it 5 years and we'll come back and grade this one. But with the NFL draft officially over, it's time to look towards the 2026 NFL season. That's all I've got for this one. Thank you and peace.